Lesson 5 is entitled The Self from Western and Eastern Thought. This lesson revolves with the question, do we exist for ourselves or for others? Nabubuhay ba tayo para sa atin, sarili, or para sa ibang tao? Individual versus collective self. Individualism versus collectivism. Individual self has personal and private views while collective selves derives from the group. Ito parang relevant to doon sa private self and collective self that we have discussed under sociological view of self. Ang individualism ay practiced by Western cultures. Ito yung mga Americans. They believe that they should assert and stand for themselves. I am my own man. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. So, hindi sila humihingi ng opinion sa iba. They do the things by themselves and they want to work by themselves individually. In individualism, the person determines his own life. Wala siyang hinihinga ng payo, siya lang ang nagdedesisyon kung anong gusto niyang gawin. It is an orientation concerned with the independence and self-reliance of the individual kasi naniniwala siya na may kakayahan siya to decide by himself. And there is an emphasis on freedom and choice. However, hindi naman ibig sabihin na nagpo-promote ito ng isolation. Yun lang talaga yung kanilang culture. Mas prefer nila na makapag-decide sa sarili nila. In addition to that individualistic culture, it is grounded on the idea that an individual make judgments, act based on his or her own thoughts, and disagree with others. So, ito kasing mga Western, usually mga Americans, hindi sila nahihiya to disagree. Tayong mga Filipino, it's usually difficult for us to say no to others. Nahihiya tayo kasi baka makasakit tayo ng damdamin, nahihiya tayo baka kung ano yung iisipin nila sa atin. But for individualistic culture, like the Western culture, for them, it is but normal to disagree, to give comments on what they really want to say. Everyone is free to decide whether to take part or not in solving that problem. So that's individualism. So the next is collective self. It is practiced by Eastern cultures, by countries in Asia like the Philippines. We observe close family ties. We value our family. We value our co-workers. We value our friend. We usually ask for opinions and guidance from our relatives. In collective self, it is of utmost importance to be a part of and maintain social networks, maintain good relationships, and fulfill obligations. Kaya nga marami sa mga Filipino ang maraming Facebook account kasi part na ng nature natin to connect with others. We also engage in different organizations sa mga digital groups. It is an orientation characterized by belongingness to a larger groups or collectives. Mas prefer kasi natin na parte tayo ng isang grupo or malaking grupo. Like for instance, sa family, usually nagse-celebrate pa ng reunion kapag halimbawang Christmas, family stay together. Yan. So, mas prefer ng mga Asian countries ang collective self. Under collectivistic culture, it gives more importance to loyalty to the in-group which in turn takes care of the individual's welfare. Meron tayong tinatawag na in-group and out-group as we have discussed that under sociological view of self. Now, under collectivistic culture, we belong to a group, okay, which we call the in-group. We prefer to be a part of that group because we believe and feel that if something happened to us, somebody will help us. in different way. So it gives more importance on relationship, roles, duties, obligations, and the preservation of culture and traditions. Kung ano yung pine-preserve na traditions and culture by that group that identifies you as a person. Ito yung tinatawag natin na social identity. So, for instance, among Filipinos, we are known for observing close family ties, we are hospitable, we honor and respect God and our parents as well as the elders. In addition, collectivistic culture prioritizes the needs and goals of society over the needs and desires of every individual. Self is viewed as part of a we instead of only a me. A group may be a family, a clan, community, nation, or the entire human race. So usually, bumubuo ng grupo not only for individual members, but the goal is to help the entire society, okay, over the needs and desires of every individual. So yung focus nito para makatulong sa society, magbigay tayo halimbawa ng organization. Halimbawa, itong grupo na ito can create yung isang digital group para sa mga walang trabaho, para makahanap ng trabaho. Another is can create yung grupo na to, halimbawa sa digital group where you belong sa mga mahihilig magluto. Okay? So, there is the goal of helping another individual in different ways. To summarize, the Western concept of self involves being analytic, from specific to their approaches from specific to general, from individual to the whole group. They are also monotheistic. They believe that the supreme being, they believe in one supreme being and bipolarity of both qualities of existence. So, pag sinabing bipolarity, it could either be ugly or beautiful. Kung hindi ka kind, then you are cruel. Then the Western self are also individualistic. They prefer to work by themselves, and they are also materialistic and rationalistic. So perhaps they prefer materials more than relations. So these are selected Eastern concept of self. So first is Buddhism. For Buddhism, there is no self. There is no Atman, because humans have no real knowledge of ourself or clear proof of claiming that there is self. Everything is just an inclusion, a flux of momentary perception, thoughts, and feelings. So, ang lahat daw ay pawang perception lamang at wala raw tayong clear idea about ourselves. Therefore, for them, the self does not exist. So, bakit sinabi ng Buddhism na the self does not exist? Because it's more of a process rather than a static substance. So, instead na sabihin natin ang self is composed of physical body, then there is a process involved. It evolves physically. Now, with regards to our way of thinking, it also includes processes. It is not static. Some processes, thought for example, may fade instantly while others last much longer, but nothing is ever permanent or unchanging. So, to summarize, there is no self because our self keep on changing. It's not static. So next is Confucianism. The identity is called relational self. Each member must possess the same qualities that the group preserves and cherishes. So dito, mas pinapahalagahan yung ating pagiging part of the group. Kaya tinawag na relational self ang self. But on the other hand, it can also be a subdued self. It is a condition when they respond to perceptions not based on their own needs and aspirations, but rather based on the requirements and obligations socially. So the subdued self means to practice Ren or human-heartedness, kasi hindi mo na tinitignan yung sarili mo, rather tinitignan mo kung ano yung mas nakakabuti sa iba. In Confucianism, Ren is a virtue of altruistic behavior. Para sa kanila, mas mahalaga ang pagtulong sa kapwa. A subdued self, therefore, is being a person for others. That's why the core of Confucius thought is the golden rule or the principle of reciprocity. Do not do unto others what you do not want others do unto you. Now, the principle of reciprocity represents balance. So, it is understood that they value love, benevolence, and charity for other person. Dito nagpapakita yung tunay na self. Next is Taoism. It emphasizes living in harmony with the Tao or the way of or path, which is a religion and a philosophy at the same time. Tao is nothing but the expression of the unity of the universe and of the path which human beings must take to preserve that unity. So pag sa Taoism naman, kailangan merong unity. So the path starts with the knowledge of the origin of the universe. So ano bang unity ang tinutukoy dito? Kailangan merong balance. For instance, ito yung yin and yang. The Tao is commonly regarded as the nature that is the foundation of all that exists. So binibigyan din nila ng pagpapahalaga yung nature. Taoists believe that simplicity, spontaneity, and harmony with nature should govern one's life. And there should be unity and harmony among opposing elements. Ito yon, yin and yang. Hence, there is oneness of the Tao. Nagkakaroon ng harmony if there is balance. Itong balance na to, rooted from the universe and the value of nature. Kasi itong harmony is also connected with the nature. The self is one of the limitless form of the Tao. According to Taoism, the selfless person leads to a balanced life in harmony with both nature and society. So, kung okay ka sa family mo, dapat okay ka din sa society. So, kailangan nagbabalance. The last one is Hinduism. So, para sa mga Hinduism, ang Upanishad is the key concept and the ideas of Hinduism. Ito yung pinaka-Bible nila. The Hinduist view about the self was written in the Upanishad or the story of creation, which tells about the origin of the universe and humans. So, in the beginning, there was a self alone in the shape of a person. Tinatawag nila na Purusha. In the story, he looked around and saw nothing but himself. So the Atman, referred to as the self, the spirit, or soul, is the same self described in the creation. So tumingin siya, wala siyang ibang nakita kundi sarili niya lamang at tinatawag nila itong Atman. Itong Atman, merong spirit and soul, which is the same self na unang pangalan ay Purusha. The Atman is one with the Brahman, the absolute transcendental power, the most powerful being. For them, tinatawag nila na Brahman. And therefore, itong self na to, known as Atman, is in connection or meron siyang divine relationship with the Brahman. For Hinduism, to be identified with the Brahman, the Atman indicates a true self which underlies one's existence. So, para ma-identify natin yung ating true self, kailangan you are identified with the Brahman. The law of karma is the most important doctrine of Hinduism. People get exactly what they deserve. If you do things, you will be rewarded. If you do bad, you will be punished. So, isang pinapahalagahan nilang doktrina ay karma. Gumawa ka ng mabuti, mabuti rin mangyayari sa'yo. Kapag gumawa ka ng masama, meron ding masama na mangyayari as a form of punishment. Therefore, the individual is the only one responsible for the consequences of her action.